Hey everybody, welcome to this Ohlone College Library tutorial. In this one, we are going to be talking a little bit about LibAnswers and giving you kind of an overview of how LibAnswers works. So let's go ahead and jump in. I got a quick little presentation for you here, so let me get that set up. All right, so here we go. So our objectives here, the first thing that we are going to talk about is we are going to talk a little bit about the ticket workflow and sort of how we get information into the system. And that'll be this video. Hopefully it'll be nice and quick and short and easy to digest. And then the next one, we'll talk a little bit about managing and modifying tickets. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll talk a little bit about the workflow here. So as you may have guessed, we are working with tickets in LibAnswers, and a ticket really is just a way to track a reference interaction you have with a student or with a faculty member or some kind of patron, and it's a way for all of us to be able to access that information down the road in case we need it later. So we get information in a couple different ways. They come in through submission forms, they come in through emails, and they come in through text messages or SMS messages. And that one has a little dash line because it is slightly special, and we will talk about that in just a second. So moving on, the three most common ways that we are going to get them in is through the submission form. So you can see on the left here in that image, that is a link to the quote unquote submit your question form that exists on the library FAQ page. This other way we get things in is through email submissions. So that's whenever anybody sends an email to ask@ohlone.libanswers.com, that will auto-generate a ticket. And the third way is going to be our SMSs. So anytime that number gets text, the system generates a ticket for us. So this first one that we're going to talk about, this I'm sure looks very familiar to you, and I apologize if this is well-worn territory and you know all this already, but the submission form that exists on the FAQ site, it basically is just going to collect some really basic metadata in order to populate that ticket. So you can see it's going to ask for a question, it's going to ask for some more detail, it's going to ask for some contact info, and it's going to require them to submit an email address because we got to get back to them some way. So the link to this form shows up on the FAQ page, but these submission forms are both modular and they are customizable. So we can change the questions that exist on here. We can place these at different parts of the LibGuide and make them look differently. So they are pretty flexible. So let's go ahead and take a look at one real quick. Let me get that set up. Okay, so I have a fake question set up here. As you can see, I've entered in the question field, a history of cable cars, and then in the more detail, I enter what the actual question is, or maybe some more information. I've gone ahead and put my email address in there and my name, and I have clicked submit. And let me jump over to the LibAnswers dashboard, and we will see what that ticket looks like. Okay, so we're looking at the LibAnswers dashboard right now, and you can see there's a couple of different questions here. The status for all of them is new, and in another video we will go in more detail about statuses and where the questions come from and all this good stuff. So don't worry, that is on its way. So down here I have the question that I submitted. And so I'm going to go ahead and click the link on it, the history of cable cars. You can see, let me pull up the question that I submitted as well. So you can see both of them side by side here. All right, so I have them pulled up right here side by side, and you can see the question that I had entered shows up in this blue section. So this blue section at the top here is what the original question is that has been submitted. So I have the title or the question right up here. You can see it says that. You can also see the more detail or explanation section shows up as the body of the question that was submitted, and it also has this hyperlink down here saying this is who asked it because I had entered my name. And if I click on this, you can see it shows the email address of the person who submitted that question. Okay, so when this thing gets submitted, this is how it initially shows up. There are currently no replies on this ticket. I have claimed it; it is mine, but I have not replied to it yet. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a later video. Okay, so moving on here. The second way we get these is if we submit an email when a question is sent to the ask@ohlone.libanswers.com email address. It will store some of that info as a basic ticket, kind of like the one that we saw before. The body of the text of the email, like I've put here, will show up in the body of the ticket, and the sender, wherever the email address comes from, will show up as in the contact info. So it's going to store that basic information as a ticket as well. And the third way we get these tickets into the system is through SMS messaging or texting. So when somebody texts that Ohlone number, the body of that text will show up within the body of the ticket, and the phone number will be stored as an anonymous user. So when we reply to that ticket, we don't store the phone number of the person itself, but it will automatically send it back to that phone number. So they'll reply. Okay, so here's the ticket workflow. There is a fourth way that we get tickets into the system, and that's through manual entry. So we can manually enter a ticket. When you're on the dashboard, you can click the answers dropdown in the header. You can click the create button. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a form that looks just like that submission form. And these are kind of handy because when you're manually entering information for a ticket, it can be useful to help capture reference questions that exist outside of the system. So if somebody sends you maybe a personal email or calls you on the phone, or you get a personal text or something, you can always take that information and manually put it in the system so that it can be tracked and trended the way we are using these other tickets. So that can be kind of handy. Okay, so we have our four main inputs: our forms, our emails, submissions, our SMS texts, and our manual entry. So all these things generate tickets. The last thing I want to talk about is this sort of special case here, which is the SMS text message. So when a text message gets sent, it generates a ticket in the system, but it also simultaneously generates a chat at the same time. So it's unique in the sense that it sort of lives in both places at the same time. So if you're working the reference desk and a chat comes in that is actually coming from someone's mobile phone, when you claim that chat, you will also claim that ticket. So it exists in both places. The other thing that I want to point out here really quickly is that chats also can be converted to tickets. So there is a button in the chat window where you can store that information as a ticket. So a chat is really kind of a fifth way to generate new information. How applicable that's going to be is, who knows? But I just wanted you to be aware of that. So chats can become tickets. Tickets don't necessarily become chats. It doesn't really go the other way. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a handle on how we get information into the system using these tickets. And on the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about managing tickets. I hope that was helpful. Send me an email if you have any questions or any comments or anything else you'd like to see. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Bye.